I had just signed the papers for my dream country house in Vermont when my phone rang. My daughter Sarah's voice was breathless with excitement. "Mom, get ready. In an hour, I'll be there with 22 people from Brad's family. Cook for everyone and get the rooms ready. We'll stay 3 weeks." The line went dead. I stood there, keys still warm in my hand, staring at my retirement sanctuary. 22 strangers, 3 weeks, no warning. That's when I decided they'd learn a lesson they'd never forget. The weight of those keys in my palm represented 43 years of sacrifice. 43 years since my husband Daniel died in that construction accident, leaving me with a 2-year-old daughter and a mortgage I couldn't afford. But I made it work. Lord knows I always made it work. My name is Mackenzie Thompson, and for the past 4 decades, I've been everyone's solution to their problems. As a pediatric nurse at Burlington General, I worked double shifts, holiday weekends, and every overtime opportunity that came my way. Not for myself, but for Sarah. Always for Sarah. I remember the nights I'd come home after 16-hour shifts, my feet so swollen I could barely get my shoes off, only to find teenage Sarah had invited her friends over without asking. The house would be a disaster. Music blaring, empty pizza boxes everywhere. "Oh, Mom's home," she'd announce as if I were the interruption in my own house. "Can you make us some real food? We're still hungry." And I would, because that's what mothers do, right? We provide, we sacrifice, we smile through the exhaustion. When Sarah wanted to attend Middlebury College, I took out loans I'm still paying off. When she decided to study abroad in France, her junior year, I sold my mother's jewelry to cover the extra expenses. When she announced she was getting married to Brad Whitman, a man she'd known for 6 months, I emptied my savings account to give her the wedding she demanded. $30,000 for one day, and she didn't even thank me in her wedding speech. Brad came from money, the kind of old Vermont wealth that traced its roots back to railroad fortunes. His family owned half of Stowe, collected rental properties like playing cards, and viewed anyone outside their tax bracket as the help. The first time I met his mother, Eleanor Whitman, she looked at my nurse's scrubs and asked if I was there to check someone's blood pressure. When Sarah corrected her, explaining I was the mother of the bride, Eleanor's smile turned brittle as November ice. How nice. She'd said the word nice weighted with everything she really meant. But none of that mattered anymore, because after decades of scrimping, saving, and sacrificing, I'd finally done something for myself. The country house in Peacham, Vermont, wasn't just a property. It was my declaration of independence. 5 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, 10 acres of rolling meadows, bordered by sugar maples, and a wraparound porch that caught the morning sun just right. The previous owners, the Hartleys, were downsizing to Florida, and they'd maintained the 1890s farmhouse with loving care. Original hardwood floors, a stone fireplace that could warm the whole first floor, and a kitchen with a vintage Aga stove I'd already fallen in love with. $450,000. My entire retirement fund, the life insurance payout I'd invested wisely, and every penny I'd saved by driving the same Honda Civic for 15 years and shopping at thrift stores while Sarah wore designer clothes I'd bought her. But it was mine. Finally, blessedly mine. I'd already planned every room. The corner bedroom with eastern exposure would be my writing room, where I'd finally work on those memoirs about my years in pediatric nursing. The smaller bedroom overlooking the garden would become my craft space for the quilting I'd always wanted to learn. The barn would house the chickens I planned to raise, maybe some goats. I'd grow my own vegetables, can my own preserves, and spend my evenings on that porch with a cup of tea and a good book accountable to no one but myself. 3 hours. That's how long my dream lasted. 3 hours between signing those papers and Sarah's phone call. Now standing in the empty living room with boxes still unpacked around me, I tried to process what she'd said. 22 people. Brad's family. 3 weeks. The casualness of her demand, as if I were still just the solution to her problems, not a person with my own life, my own plans, my own dreams. I thought about calling her back, explaining that the house wasn't ready, that I wasn't prepared, that they couldn't just show up. But I knew how that conversation would go. Sarah would sigh, dramatically remind me how busy she was with her job at Brad's father's company, a position she'd gotten through nepotism. Not merit and guilt me about being a bad grandmother to the children she didn't even have yet. She'd paint me as selfish, uncaring the mother who couldn't be bothered to help her only daughter in a time of need. Except this wasn't a time of need. This was entitlement pure and simple. I walked through my new home, seeing it now through different eyes. The dining room I'd imagined hosting intimate dinners with my book club would need to accommodate 24 people. The bedrooms I'd allocated for hobbies would become guest quarters for strangers who already looked down on me. My kitchen, my beautiful kitchen where I'd planned to experiment with recipes for one, would become a restaurant serving people who wouldn't appreciate the effort. That's when something shifted inside me. A small voice, one I'd suppressed for 43 years, whispered a dangerous thought. What if I didn't? What if just this once I didn't make it easy for her? My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Hope you're getting everything ready. Brad's family has specific dietary requirements. I'll send you the list. 7 are gluten-free. 3 are vegan and his mother only eats organic. You'll need to go shopping. Also, make sure the beds have high thread count sheets. You know how particular they are. I stared at that text at the assumption that I'd drop everything, spend hundreds of dollars on specialty groceries, and transform my new home into a free resort for people who'd never shown me an ounce of respect. Then I noticed something interesting. The text was sent from a location tag at the Whitman Estate in Stowe. Sarah was already with Brad's family, which meant this visit had been planned. They were already gathered, already packed, already assuming my compliance. Another text popped up. Oh, and Mom Brad's cousin James is bringing his emotional support dog. Hope that's not a problem. See you soon. A dog. On top of everything else, a dog in my pristine new home. I set my phone down and walked to the window, looking out at my 10 acres of possibility. The late afternoon sun painted the meadows gold, and I could see deer grazing at the tree line. This was supposed to be my sanctuary, my reward for a lifetime of putting everyone else first. Sarah had made her choice. She'd chosen to treat me like the hired help, just as Brad's family always had. She'd chosen to volunteer my home, my time, my money, without even the courtesy of asking. Well, two could play at that game. I picked up my phone not to call Sarah back, but to check my security system app. The previous owners had installed cameras around the property for wildlife watching. How convenient that they'd serve a different purpose now. Because if my daughter thought she could walk all over me one more time, she was about to learn that even the most patient woman has her limits. And I'd just found mine. 90 minutes later, tires crunched on my new gravel driveway. Not the convoy of cars I'd expected, but Sarah's white Mercedes SUV, the one Brad bought her for their second anniversary. She was alone, arriving ahead of the others to help prepare, though we both knew she'd never actually helped with preparation in her life. I watched from the kitchen window as she emerged, designer sunglasses pushed up on her highlighted hair fingers, flying over her phone screen. She didn't even look up at the house, this place that represented my life's work. To her, it was just another resource to exploit. Mom. She breezed through the front door without knocking her voice, carrying that false cheer she used when she wanted something. This place is so quaint, very rustic. Brad's family will find it amusing, I'm sure. Amusing? My dream home was amusing. Sarah? I kept my voice neutral, standing in the doorway between the kitchen and living room. This is quite a surprise. She waved dismissively, already assessing the space like a hotel manager. I know, but you know how Brad's family is. They had this whole reunion planned at the Mountain View Resort, and wouldn't you know it? The place had a kitchen fire last week, suddenly canceled everything. Eleanor was beside herself. So you volunteered my home. Well, you have all this space now. She gestured around the room, her diamond tennis bracelet catching the light. And it's not like you're doing anything else. This is perfect. You love cooking for crowds, and Brad's family needs somewhere comfortable. It's win-win. I watched her pivot slowly, her nose wrinkling slightly. Though we'll need to do something about the smell. Is that mothballs? And these curtains, Mom. Very 1990s. But don't worry, I'm sure no one will mention it. Every word was a calculated insult wrapped in false concern. This was Sarah's specialty death by 1,000 cuts while maintaining plausible deniability. I need to know about sleeping arrangements. She continued pulling out her phone again. I've got a spreadsheet here of who needs what. Brad's parents get the master suite, obviously. Uncle Richard and Aunt Patricia need a room with an attached bath because of his medical condition. Oh, and Cousin James, with the emotional support dog, he'll need a ground floor room. The dog has hip dysplasia. The master suite is my room, Sarah. She looked up, genuinely puzzled. Well, yes, but you can sleep in one of the smaller rooms for a few weeks. It's not a big deal. Oh, I need to call Brad about the grocery situation. Give me a minute. She wandered toward the living room, already dialing. I stayed where I was, remembering the security system. The previous owners had been thoughtful installing cameras in the main rooms to check on the house remotely. The system was still active, still recording. Hey, babe. Sarah's voice drifted back to me. I'm here. You were right, it's pretty basic. But it'll do. No, she didn't complain. You know Mom. She's just happy to be useful. Yeah, I'm buttering her up now. I moved quietly closer to the doorway, staying just out of sight. Sarah had settled onto my new sofa feet up on the coffee table, switching to video call. Brad's face filled her screen, his country club tan and perfect teeth on full display. Show me around, he said. I want to see what we're working with. Sarah stood panning her phone around the room. Like I said, basic. But here's the thing, there's got to be at least a full acre of lawn. Perfect for the family games. And get this, she bought it outright. No mortgage. $450 cash. Your mother had that kind of money. Life insurance from Dad plus her retirement fund. I tried to tell her to invest it properly, but you know how stubborn she is. At least this way it's in property. Property will inherit. My blood chilled. Sarah laughed, the sound like breaking glass. Exactly. Though we need to speed up the timeline. I saw some of her mail forwarded here. She's 68 now. If we wait too long, she might do something stupid like remarry or give money to charity. What does she need charity for? She's got you. Brad's smirk was visible even on the small screen. Speaking of which, did you bring the papers? In my bag, though I think we should wait until everyone's here. Your mom said if we can show a pattern of confusion and inability to handle responsibility, it'll make the conservatorship easier to push through. Conservatorship. The word hit me like ice water. My daughter was planning to declare me incompetent. Smart. Brad agreed. Mom's already talked to Cousin Marcus about it. Since he's a judge, his opinion will carry weight. And having Dr. Patterson here for the evaluation is genius. 3 weeks is plenty of time to document everything we need. The best part. Sarah leaned closer to the phone, lowering her voice conspiratorially, is she's so desperate for family connection she'll do whatever we ask. You should see her, Brad, already planning to cook for everyone, make them comfortable. She has no idea what's coming. The trust fund Mom set up is ready whenever we get control. We transfer the house sale proceeds there and boom, early retirement for us. God, I can't wait to quit that stupid job. 3 years of pretending to care about marketing is enough. Just remember what Mom said. Document everything. Every forgotten conversation, every confused moment, every time she seems overwhelmed. Marcus will need ammunition for the hearing. Already on it. I'm going to start asking her about Dad, see if I can get her emotional and confused. Maybe cry a little, claim she's mixing up dates and memories. Perfect. And Sarah, make sure she signs the power of attorney before she realizes what's happening. Mom said once we have that, even temporarily, we can start the financial transfers. Trust me, babe. I've been handling my mother my whole life. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her if I make her feel guilty enough. Watch this. I heard her footsteps returning and quickly moved back to the kitchen, my hands gripping the counter to stop their shaking. Conservatorship, power of attorney, financial transfers. My own daughter was orchestrating my legal destruction. Mom! Sarah's voice was suddenly soft, concerned. Are you okay? You look pale. I forced myself to turn to meet her lying eyes. Just tired from the move. Oh, Mom, she moved closer, placing a hand on my arm, the same hand wearing the wedding ring I'd helped pay for. This is why I worry about you. Taking on such a big place at your age. Are you sure you're not overdoing it? There it was, the first documented concern about my well-being. I recognized the performance, now saw the calculation behind every word. I'm fine, Sarah. Just need to get groceries for 22 people, apparently. 23 with you, but don't worry, I'll help. I made a list of everyone's dietary needs. It's pretty complex, but I'm sure you can handle it. You always were so good with details. Well, you used to be. Another dig, another documented doubt about my competence. Though, she continued tilting her head with practiced concern. Are you sure you're up for this? I mean, managing meals for that many people, keeping track of who needs what. It's a lot. Maybe I should handle the shopping. I've been cooking for crowds longer than you've been alive, Sarah. Of course I didn't mean. It's just you seem a little scattered lately. Last month when we talked, you kept repeating yourself. I hadn't repeated myself. We'd barely spoken last month, just a brief call where she'd asked for money for a new investment opportunity. But I could see what she was doing now, creating a narrative, building her case. Tell you what, she said brightly. Why don't I handle organizing everything? You just cook what I tell you and make the beds. That way you won't get overwhelmed. Brad always says I'm so good at managing things. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mackenzie, this is Ruth from next door. Noticed you had company. Everything all right? Seemed tense when we met at closing. Ruth Morrison, the retired judge who lived on the adjoining property. We'd met briefly when I'd toured the house, a sharp-eyed woman in her 70s who'd welcomed me to the neighborhood with homemade cookies and keen observation. Who's that? Sarah asked, trying to glimpse my screen. Just a neighbor checking in. Oh, you should probably limit socializing with strangers, Mom. At your age, you can't be too careful about people trying to take advantage. The irony of her words would have been funny if it weren't so sickening. I typed back quickly, all fine, thank you for checking. Actually, Sarah said, I need to get some things from the car. Start thinking about dinner, okay? The family will be hungry when they arrive. Brad's mom especially gets cranky when she has to wait for food. The moment she stepped outside, I grabbed my laptop from the moving box and logged into the security system. The cameras had caught everything, video and audio crystal clear. Sarah planning my demise with the same casual tone she'd used to order lunch. Another text from Ruth. Saw the young woman's license plate. Vermont legal aid helped my friend with a similar situation. Coffee tomorrow's. This time, I responded with more than politeness. Yes, early, before my guests wake. Thank you. Because if my daughter thought I was just a confused old woman easy to manipulate and discard, she was about to learn that nurses know how to document everything, and judges neighbors. They know even more. I stood in my bedroom that night, door locked, processing the magnitude of Sarah's betrayal while the house filled with strangers. They'd arrived like an invasion force, luxury vehicles, disgorging Brad's relatives in waves of complaint and demand. Eleanor Whitman had swept in first, her practiced smile sharp as winter wind. Mackenzie, how adventurous of you to take on such a project at your age, she'd said, running a manicured finger along my doorframe as if checking for dust. Though I suppose it's nice to have goals, even unrealistic ones. The others followed her lead, each comment a veil-wrapped weapon. The house was charmingly dated. The rooms were cozy, meaning small. The location was certainly remote, meaning beneath them. Yet they settled in like locusts, claiming spaces, making demands, treating me like hired staff in my own home. But I smiled, nodded, played the part of the eager-to-please hostess they expected. Now in the privacy of my room, I pulled out my phone and began my real work. The security system app showed me multiple camera views, living room, kitchen, front porch, and hallway. I created a new folder, Evidence. A soft knock interrupted my planning. Mrs. Thompson! Ruth Morrison's voice was barely audible through the door. I'm at your back entrance. I slipped out quietly, meeting my neighbor on the rear deck. Ruth stood in the shadows, her silver hair covered by a dark scarf, looking every inch the judge she'd been for 30 years. "Forgive the dramatics," she said quietly, "but I recognize several cars in your driveway. The Whitman family and I have history. They tried to force my cousin off her land 10 years ago using similar tactics. Legal manipulation disguised as family concern. How much do you know? Enough to know you need help, may I?" I led her to my room through the back stairs, avoiding the main areas where Brad's family had gathered. Once inside, I showed her the recorded conversation between Sarah and Brad. Ruth's expression hardened with each word. Textbook financial elder abuse. The conservatorship angle is particularly nasty. They'll use this visit to build their case. You need to be very careful. What should I do? First, document everything. Second, contact my friend Martin Ashford. He's the best elder law attorney in Vermont. Third, and this is crucial, give them exactly what they expect while protecting yourself. If you suddenly push back, they'll accelerate their timeline. She handed me a business card. "Call Martin first thing tomorrow. Tell him I sent you. In the meantime, I have something that might help." From her bag, she produced several small devices. "Recording equipment. Better quality than your security system, completely legal in Vermont as long as you're part of the conversation. Place these strategically." "Why are you helping me?" Ruth's smile was sharp as her name suggested. "Because women like Eleanor Whitman think they own the world, and women like us, we prove them wrong." After she left, I spent an hour placing the devices, one behind a picture frame in the living room, another tucked beneath the kitchen table, a third in the powder room where people often spoke freely. Then I returned to the main house mask firmly in place. "Mom, there you are." Sarah appeared at the top of the stairs. "Where were you? Mrs. Whitman needs her special tea, and Cousin Marcus wants to discuss something about property laws over dinner." "Just getting some air. I'll make the tea right away." In the kitchen, I found Eleanor holding court with several relatives, her voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "The key is documentation." She was explaining to a younger woman I recognized as Brad's sister. "Every instance of confusion, every moment of weakness. My lawyer says 3 weeks of solid evidence is more than enough." "But what if she refuses to sign?" the sister asked. "Oh, she won't. Sarah knows exactly how to handle her. Guilt is a powerful tool when properly applied." I moved around them silently, preparing Eleanor's precious organic oolong while memorizing every word. The kettle whistled, providing cover for my next question. "Mrs. Whitman, how do you take your tea?" She glanced at me with barely concealed irritation. "I've told you before, Mackenzie. 1 spoon of honey, no milk. Really, you should write these things down if your memory is failing." We'd never discussed her tea preferences. This was the first time she'd asked. But I simply nodded, adding to her false narrative, while the hidden recorder captured her lie. "Of course, my apologies." "See," Eleanor murmured to Brad's sister. "Classic sign, confabulation, creating false memories to cover gaps. Marcus, you should note this." Marcus Whitman, the judge cousin, appeared in the doorway. Tall and distinguished with the kind of presence that intimidated juries, he studied me with professional interest. "Mrs. Thompson, Sarah mentioned you've been having some health concerns lately." "Did she?" I kept my voice mild, confused. "I can't recall mentioning any." "No, she said you'd been dizzy forgetting appointments. Perhaps you've forgotten the conversations." The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Deny the symptoms, appear defensive. Confirm them, appear incompetent. So I chose a third option. "Oh, you might be right. These days all blend together sometimes. Was it last week I told her? Or last month? Time moves so strangely when you're alone." Marcus exchanged a meaningful look with Eleanor. "Indeed, and this house, it's quite large for one person. Lots to maintain, remember, keep track of." "I suppose, though I've only been here 2 days, so I'm still learning my way around." 2 days. Dr. Patterson, the medical professional in their scheme, joined our group. "Sarah said you'd been here for weeks, getting confused about timelines." Another lie, another trap. But I had the closing documents in my bedroom dated 3 days ago. Let them build their house of cards. Maybe she's right. Like I said, time moves strangely. They clustered closer, wolves scenting weakness. Questions came faster. What year was it? Who was the president? Could I count backward from 100 by sevens? I answered some correctly. Fumbled others deliberately watched them document every staged hesitation. Perhaps we should sit down, Dr. Patterson suggested, guiding me to a chair with false concern. You seem tired. When did you last eat? I let them fuss. Let them document my confusion and weakness, all while the recorders captured their manufactured crisis. Sarah appeared playing the concerned daughter perfectly. Oh, Mom, why didn't you tell me you were feeling poorly? Here, let me help with dinner. You rest. But the family needs to eat. We'll manage. Brad ordered pizza. You just relax, okay? Maybe take your medicine. What medicine? Sarah's eyes flicked to Dr. Patterson. Your blood pressure medicine, remember the pills you take every day. I took no such medicine. My blood pressure was perfect, confirmed at my physical 2 months ago. But questioning her would break character, so I nodded vaguely. If you say so, dear. The evening continued in this vein, every interaction carefully orchestrated to paint me as a declining woman, unable to manage basic tasks. They didn't know that my confused wandering had purpose, that each room I entered allowed me to position another recorder, gather another piece of evidence. By 10 o'clock, the house hummed with their satisfaction. In the living room, Eleanor held a strategy session, thinking I was safely medicated in my room. I stood in the hallway just out of sight, recording on my phone as backup. 3 days down, 18 to go, Eleanor announced. Marcus, how's the documentation? Excellent. Multiple witnessed episodes of confusion, memory loss, and physical weakness. Dr. Patterson's notes are particularly compelling. And the financial assessment? Brad's voice smug with anticipated victory. The house is worth at least $450, probably more with the land. Her retirement account had another $200,000. Plus Dad's life insurance investments, we're looking at close to $1 million in assets. Which will secure your future nicely, Eleanor approved. Sarah, how soon can you get the papers signed? I'm thinking day 10. Long enough to establish clear decline, but before she gets suspicious. I'll cry about Dad, make her feel guilty about leaving me to handle everything alone. She'll sign to make me feel better. They laughed, actually laughed at the thought of stealing my life's work. I slipped back to my room, added the phone recording to my evidence file, then texted Ruth, meeting with lawyer tomorrow. They're moving faster than expected. Her response was immediate. Martin's expecting you at 7 a.m. Bring everything. The next morning, I woke at 5, dressed silently, and slipped out through the back door. My Honda, parked behind the barn, started quietly. As I drove down the misty Vermont roads toward town, I thought about the performance ahead. 10 more days of playing their victim while building my case. But first, Martin Ashford. Time to learn how to turn their weapons against them. The Whitman family thought they were directing this production. They had no idea the third act was mine to write. Martin Ashford's office occupied a converted Victorian near the Peacham Town Green, its discreet brass plaque the only indication of the legal power within. At 7 a.m., sharp Ruth and I sat across from him, watching his expression darken as he reviewed my evidence. This is... He paused, choosing words carefully. One of the most calculated cases of attempted elder abuse I've seen. They're not just trying to steal from you, Mrs. Thompson. They're trying to erase you, legally. Can we stop them? Stop them, we're going to destroy them. His smile reminded me why Ruth had insisted on him. But it requires patience and performance. How are your acting skills? I convinced them I'm a helpless old woman. I'd say they're adequate. Good, because for the next week you need to become their perfect victim while we build an impenetrable case. Here's what we're going to do. Over the next hour, Martin outlined a strategy that was both brilliant and ruthless. Legal documents to protect my assets immediately. A formal complaint with Adult Protective Services. Hidden medical evaluations to counter their fake assessments. And most importantly, a carefully orchestrated reveal that would happen in my home with witnesses who couldn't be dismissed or intimidated. "I'll need a complete financial freeze by end of day," Martin instructed his paralegal. "Every account, every asset locked down but invisibly. If they run a credit check, everything should appear normal." "What about the power of attorney Sarah mentioned?" "Let her present it. Let her pressure you. But don't sign anything without a witness present. I'm arranging for several friends to drop by randomly. Retired law enforcement social workers, people whose testimony will carry weight." Ruth leaned forward. "What about the house transfer documents they're preparing?" "Oh, those are special." Martin's grin was sharp. "My contact at the courthouse will alert me the moment they're filed. Filing fraudulent documents is a felony. We want them to commit fully." I returned home to find chaos. Apparently, my absence had been noticed and interpreted as another sign of decline. Sarah met me at the door, face twisted with false concern. "Mother, where were you? We've been worried sick." "I went for a drive. The morning was so pretty." "A drive alone. At your age." She guided me inside where an audience waited. "You can't just disappear like that. What if something had happened?" Eleanor sat in my living room like a queen surrounded by relatives who watched our interaction with predatory interest. "Mackenzie, dear, we were about to call the police. This kind of wandering is concerning." I left a note. I lied watching them scramble. "There was no note," Brad insisted. I walked to the kitchen, pretended to look confused at the empty counter. "Oh, I was sure I..." Let my voice trail off, shoulders sagging. "It's okay, Mom." Sarah rubbed my back while shooting triumphant looks at the others. "We all forget things. Why don't you sit down? Have you taken your pills today?" I don't remember." Dr. Patterson appeared with a blood pressure cuff. "Let's just check your vitals, shall we? All this confusion must be stressful." While he performed his fake examination documenting my elevated blood pressure, actually normal, I noticed new faces in the room. Brad's lawyer cousin had arrived along with two people I didn't recognize carrying briefcases. "Who are they?" I asked, letting worry creep into my voice. "Just friends, Mom. Here to help with some paperwork. Nothing to worry about." The morning progressed with escalating documentation. They had me perform memory tests, which I failed strategically. They asked about my finances, which I claimed not to understand. They presented forms just to look at, which I struggled to read without my glasses hidden in my pocket. Around noon, the first of Martin's plants arrived. Detective Patricia Howell, retired, knocked on my door claiming to be collecting for the local food bank. I invited her in, introduced her to everyone, watched the family's discomfort at having law enforcement even retired in their presence. "Beautiful home, Mrs. Thompson. You must be so proud. And handling all these guests, I could never manage it." "Oh, my daughter helps," I said, patting Sarah's hand. "I don't know what I'd do without her." Patricia stayed for coffee, chatting with various family members, her trained eyes missing nothing. When she left, she squeezed my hand. "Take care of yourself, dear. You have my card if you need anything." The afternoon brought more visitors, a social worker checking on new residents, a financial advisor following up on appointment requests. Each professional, each strategically timed, each leaving business cards and creating witnesses. "Your mother certainly knows a lot of people," Eleanor observed, suspicion creeping into her voice. "Small town," I offered vaguely. "Everyone knows everyone." But I could see them recalculating, wondering if their plan was as foolproof as they'd believed. Sarah doubled down, becoming more aggressive in her documentation. "Mom, tell everyone about Dad. When did he die again?" "A test. They knew exactly when Daniel had died." "Oh, it was summer, wasn't it? Or spring? The flowers were blooming. Or was that at his funeral?" I let tears well up, genuine ones, as I remembered my husband. I miss him so much sometimes I forget he's gone. "She told me last week he just called her..." Sarah lied smoothly to the others. "Complete fabrication." Marcus made a note. "Hallucinations can indicate advancing decline." That evening, while preparing dinner, they'd graciously allowed me to cook. After my insistence, I overheard Brad on a conference call with someone. Yes, the property is valued at $450 minimum. Once we have conservatorship sale, should be simple. No, she has no other family, no one to contest. 3 weeks was the timeline, but honestly, it might be sooner. She's deteriorating faster than expected. I stirred the soup, humming softly, playing the confused old woman, while memorizing every detail for Martin. Tomorrow would bring the halfway point of their visit. Time to escalate my own performance. After dinner, Sarah presented me with some simple forms. Just medical stuff, Mom. In case something happens, I'd be able to talk to your doctors. I studied the papers, squinting. Hidden among medical releases was a financial power of attorney buried on page 3. This is so much reading, I complained. My eyes are tired. I'll help you tomorrow, she soothed. When you're fresh. That night, I texted Martin about the documents. His response was swift. Perfect. Let her pressure you. I'm arranging something special for day 10. The next days blurred together in a calculated dance. I grew progressively more confused, mixing up names, forgetting conversations that never happened, agreeing to things I'd then deny saying. The family documented everything, building their case with cruel efficiency. But I was building too, recording every conversation, photographing every document they left visible, creating my own paper trail of their deception. Ruth checked in daily, Martin's plants continued their random visits, and my evidence file grew massive. On day 8, Eleanor made a mistake. Confident in their coming victory, she spoke freely during afternoon tea, not noticing I'd entered the room behind her. The beautiful thing is, once we have the house, we can leverage it for the Stowe development. Use her asset to fund our project, and she'll never even understand what happened. By the time anyone might question it, she'll be safely tucked away in Sunshine Manor. Sunshine Manor. I knew it well from my nursing days. The cheapest assisted living facility in 3 counties where elderly residents were warehoused rather than cared for. Where my friend Dorothy had died alone, her children too busy spending her money to visit. They planned to steal everything, then abandon me in a place that would ensure my rapid decline. The cruelty of it stole my breath. But it also steeled my resolve. 2 more days until their trap would spring. 2 more days until mine snapped shut instead. That night, I stood at my bedroom window looking out at the moon-silvered meadows of my hard-won home. Sarah knocked, entering without permission as always. Mom, you okay? You seem sad at dinner. Just thinking about your father. She moved closer, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the daughter I'd raised. Then it vanished, replaced by calculation. Actually, that's something we need to discuss. Dad's life insurance papers. Do you know where they are? In the safe, I answered truthfully. Could you show me? I should know these things in case they needed to liquidate those too. But I nodded, playing along. Tomorrow, dear. I'm so tired tonight. She kissed my forehead, the gesture as false as her concern. Of course. Sleep well, Mom. Big day tomorrow. She had no idea how big. Day 10 dawned crisp and clear, one of those perfect Vermont mornings that made my property look like a postcard. I stood at my kitchen window, watching the sun paint the mountains gold, knowing this would be the last day I'd have to pretend. Sarah found me there, already dressed and unusually cheerful. Morning, Mom. You're up early. I thought I'd make something special for dinner tonight. A celebration. Celebration. Her eyes sharpened. What are we celebrating? Family, I said simply. Having everyone together. I want to invite some friends too, if that's all right. Ruth from next door and a few others from town. They've been so welcoming. I watched her calculate. A dinner party meant an audience for my decline, more witnesses to my confusion. Perfect for their needs. That's a wonderful idea. I'll help you plan. We should make it really special. By noon, the house buzzed with preparation. Sarah had seized control, organizing everything while making sure to point out my mistakes. I'd set the table for 12 instead of 30. I'd forgotten to buy wine. I'd confused the salad forks with dinner forks. It's okay, Mom, she said loudly, ensuring everyone heard. This is why you have me. Just tell me who you invited and I'll handle the rest. I provided a vague list, forgetting names, mixing up details. Meanwhile, Martin Ashford was confirming our actual guest list. Detective Patricia Howell, Judge Ruth Morrison, Adult Protective Services Supervisor James Crawford, State Attorney Linda Bennett, and 3 others whose credentials would make the Whitman family very uncomfortable. At 4 o'clock, while Sarah managed preparations, I retreated to my room claiming a headache. Instead, I called Martin for final instructions. "Everything's in place," he assured me. "Your assets are protected, the complaints are filed but sealed, and tonight's witnesses are fully briefed. Are you ready?" I've been ready for 10 days. Remember, let them commit fully. The power of attorney, the house, transfer all of it. We want them on record. At 6:30, guests began arriving. Ruth came first, elegant in navy blue, her judge's bearing unmistakable despite retirement. The Whitman family greeted her with barely concealed irritation. "Another neighbor?" Eleanor asked. "My Mackenzie certainly has been social." "Small town," Ruth replied smoothly. "We look after each other." Detective Howell arrived next, followed by the others. I introduced them vaguely, forgetting names, appearing flustered. The Whitman family relaxed, seeing my confusion as further evidence. Sarah pulled me aside. "Mom, about those papers from the other night. Maybe we should handle that before dinner. While you're feeling clear." Papers. The medical forms, remember, and a few other things. Just signatures, nothing major. She produced a folder thicker than before. I glimpsed the power of attorney, but also new documents. Property transfer forms already partially filled out. They weren't waiting for conservatorship anymore. They were going for immediate control. "I should read these." "Do you really understand them, though legal language is so complex? Just trust me. Okay, I'm your daughter. I only want what's best for you." I took the pen she offered, hand trembling slightly. Around us, the dinner party continued, but I felt the family's attention focus on our corner. They knew what was happening. "Sarah, Please, Mom, for me, for your future grandchildren. You want them provided for, don't you? Now, ni sama si." Emotional manipulation perfectly timed. I bent over the papers, pen poised, then loud and clear. "Actually, I'd like everyone's attention before I sign anything." The room stilled. Sarah's hand tightened on my arm. "Mom, this is private." "No." I straightened, meeting her gaze directly. "I don't think it is." I walked to the center of the room, carrying the folder. The Whitman family watched with growing unease while my invited guests positioned themselves, strategically blocking exits. 10 days ago, I began, voice steady and clear. My daughter called to announce she was bringing 22 people to stay in my new home. No request, no consideration, just an assumption that I would comply. "Mom, you're confused." "I'm not confused, Sarah. For the first time in years, I'm seeing clearly." I opened the folder displaying the documents. Power of attorney, property transfer, financial control papers, all prepared before you even arrived. Eleanor stood. "I think we should—" "Sit down, Eleanor." My voice carried 40 years of nursing authority. "We're just getting started." I walked to the living room cabinet, retrieving a small device. "This is a digital recorder, legal in Vermont for participants in conversations. I have 10 days of recordings. Would you like to hear some highlights?" Before they could respond, I pressed play. Sarah's voice filled the room. "She's so desperate for family connection, she'll do whatever we ask. You should see her, Brad. Already planning to cook for everyone, make them comfortable. She has no idea what's coming." Gasps from my legitimate guests. The Whitman family had gone pale. I clicked to another recording. "Brad, this time. The trust fund Mom set up is ready whenever we get control. We transfer the house sale proceeds there and boom, early retirement for us." "Those were private conversations," Sarah protested. "In my home, where I'm a participant by Vermont law." I handed the device to Detective Howell. "There's more. Discussions of false medical reports, fraudulent documentation, conspiracy to commit elder abuse." Dr. Patterson headed for the door only to find James Crawford blocking his path. Dr. Patterson, I'm with Adult Protective Services. We'll need to discuss your medical license. I continued pulling out my phone. Security footage next. Sarah, here's you going through my financial documents without permission. Brad, this is you and your cousin examining my property deed. Eleanor, particularly damning, hears you explaining how to document false symptoms of decline. The room erupted. Denials, accusations, threats of lawsuits. I stood calm in the center of the storm, finally showing my true self. Mackenzie? Marcus tried his judge voice. Surely we can discuss this rationally. Like you discussed putting me in Sunshine Manor. I pulled out that recording too. Eleanor's voice planning my warehousing while they spent my money. Ruth stepped forward. I think introductions are in order. I'm Judge Ruth Morrison, retired but still active in judicial ethics. This is Detective Patricia Howell, State Attorney, Linda Bennett, and various other professionals who've been documenting this attempted fraud. Now wait a minute, Brad blustered. We're family. No, I interrupted. Family doesn't plot to steal. Family doesn't plan false imprisonment. Family doesn't treat their mother like a servant and then try to destroy her. Sarah's face crumbled, tears starting. Mom, I never meant... Save it. I turned to Attorney Bennett. I believe you have some papers to serve. The next hour was beautiful chaos. Legal documents flew. Brad's lawyer cousin tried to argue jurisdiction only to learn he was being reported to the bar. Dr. Patterson's medical license was suspended pending investigation. Eleanor received a restraining order preventing her from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my property. And Sarah got the full force of legal consequences. Criminal charges for conspiracy to commit elder abuse, attempted fraud filing false documents, and financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult. I'm not vulnerable. I informed them all. I'm not confused. I'm not declining. I'm a woman who spent 43 years sacrificing everything for an ungrateful daughter who saw me as nothing more than a resource to exploit. Mom, please. You want to know what really hurts Sarah, not the money, not even the house. It's that you looked at me and saw weakness instead of love. You saw someone to use, not someone who gave you life. The police arrived as planned, taking Brad Marcus and Dr. Patterson into custody. Eleanor left in her own car under legal advice to leave the state. The other relatives scattered like roaches when lights come on. Sarah stood in my living room designer outfit, wrinkled tears ruining her makeup, looking younger than her 35 years. What happens now? She asked quietly. Now you face consequences, real ones. Your marriage is over. Brad's family will destroy you to save themselves. Your job is gone. They won't keep someone facing fraud charges. Your assets will go to legal fees and restitution. Where will I live? Not my problem. For the first time in your life, Sarah, you'll have to solve your own issues. She left with Detective Howell, who'd waited patiently for our final conversation. I watched from my porch as the police car disappeared down my driveway, taking my daughter and 43 years of enabling with it. Ruth joined me along with Martin and the others who'd made this victory possible. You did well, Martin said, though I'm sorry it came to this. Don't be, she made her choices, I've made mine. As the last car left and quiet returned to my country home, I stood in my living room, finally free. The house was a mess, the dinner uneaten, but none of that mattered. Tomorrow I'd start my real retirement. Tonight I'd sleep in my own bed in my own home without fear of betrayal. The third act was over. Time for the encore. The news traveled through Vermont's legal community like wildfire. Within 24 hours, the Whitman family scandal had become the cautionary tale every estate lawyer shared with their clients. But I was more interested in the immediate fallout, which came faster than even Martin had predicted. 3 days after the dinner party, I sat in my sunny kitchen reading the Burlington Free Press with considerable satisfaction. The headline read, "Prominent Stowe Family Faces Elder Abuse Charges." Below it, a photo of Eleanor Whitman hiding her face as she left the courthouse. Ruth joined me for coffee, bringing updates from her network. Marcus has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. Turns out this wasn't their first attempt. 3 other elderly relatives came forward after seeing the news. Let me guess, all mysteriously signed over property before entering care facilities. 2 died within a year of signing. Suspicious circumstances the families couldn't prove, until now. My phone buzzed. Martin Ashford. Mackenzie thought you'd want to know. Brad's filing for divorce. He's claiming Sarah masterminded everything, that he was an unwitting participant. Of course he is. Won't work. We have him on recording planning the trust fund transfer. But here's the interesting part. Eleanor's cutting him off. Apparently getting caught was the unforgivable sin. She's protecting the family money by throwing Brad to the wolves. I thought about Sarah sitting in county lockup because she couldn't make bail without Brad's or Eleanor's help. Poetic justice. That afternoon, Detective Howell visited with more news. Your daughter wants to see you. She's been asking since her lawyer explained the full charges. Absolutely not. I told her you'd say that, but she wrote you a letter. You don't have to read it. She handed me an envelope, Sarah's familiar handwriting across the front. I set it aside unopened. How bad is it for her? Patricia didn't sugarcoat. With the evidence you provided, she's looking at 5 to 7 years minimum. More if they connect her to the other family cases. The prosecutor's not offering deals. Later that week, I hired a cleaning service to deep clean every room the Whitman family had occupied. As they worked, erasing every trace of those 3 weeks, I felt my home returning to me. The master bedroom became mine again. The guest rooms transformed into the hobby spaces I'd originally planned. The dining room, where Sarah had tried to steal my life, became my library. 2 weeks passed. Then came an unexpected visitor. The woman at my door looked nothing like the Sarah I'd raised. Hair flat and unstyled designer clothes, replaced by a plain gray suit, eyes hollow with the recognition of consequences. She stood between 2 officers' hands cuffed in front. 5 minutes, one officer said. Her lawyer arranged it. You don't have to allow it. I almost refused. Then curiosity won. 5 minutes. We sat in my living room, officers nearby. Sarah stared at her hands. I'm going to lose everything, she whispered. Brad's divorce lawyer sent papers. The house is in his name, the cars, everything. His family's lawyers are destroying me to protect them. You chose your allies poorly. I know. She looked up, and for a moment I saw the child who used to climb into my lap after nightmares. I keep thinking about Dad, what he'd think of me now. He'd be heartbroken. He loved you unconditionally. I did too once. Once? Love requires trust, Sarah, respect. You killed both. I was so stupid. I thought I was being smart. Brad's family made it seem so easy, so justified. They said you'd never spend the money anyway, that we were just accelerating inheritance. By putting me in a cut-rate facility to die alone. She flinched. I told myself it would be temporary, just until I died. Which wouldn't have been long at Sunshine Manor, you knew that. Tears rolled down her cheeks. No makeup to smudge now. I'm scared, Mom. I'm going to prison. I've never even had a parking ticket, and I'm going to prison. Yes, you are. Don't you feel anything? I'm your daughter. My daughter died the moment she plotted to destroy me. You're a stranger who happens to share her face. The officers stood time up. Sarah made one last attempt. The letter, did you read it? No. Please, just please. After they left, I sat alone in my peaceful home. The letter remained on my kitchen counter unopened. Ruth had offered to read it first, screen it for manipulation. Martin advised throwing it away unread. But that evening, curiosity won again. It was 12 pages front and back in Sarah's increasingly desperate handwriting. It started with apologies, moved through self-pity, attempted justification, blame shifting to Brad's family, then circled back to begging. Classic manipulation cycle textbook in its predictability. But on the last page, something different. I know you'll never forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either, but I need you to know that I remember. I remember when Dad died and you held me for hours telling me we'd be okay. I remember you working doubles to pay for my dance classes. I remember you at every recital even when you'd been up for 30 hours straight. I remember when I broke my arm at 13 and you stayed by my bed all night reading me stories like I was still little. I remember you teaching me to drive in that old Honda Patient even when I backed into a mailbox. I remember your face at my wedding, so proud even though I'd barely included you in the planning. I took all of it, all your love and sacrifice, and I gave nothing back. Worse, I tried to take even more. I became someone Dad wouldn't recognize, someone you couldn't love. I don't expect forgiveness, I don't deserve it, but I wanted you to know that somewhere inside the monster, I became that little girl you raised still exists. And she's sorry. She's so sorry. I burned the letter in my fireplace that night, watching Sarah's words turn to ash and drift up the chimney. Apologies without change meant nothing. Regret born of consequences wasn't growth. A month later at Sarah's sentencing, I gave my victim impact statement. I stood before the court before my daughter and spoke my truth. Your Honor, Sarah Thompson Whitman was given every opportunity in life. Love, education, support, and endless second chances. She repaid these gifts by plotting to steal my home, my freedom, and ultimately, my life. She looked at her mother and saw not a person but a resource to exploit. She gathered co-conspirators to document false evidence of my decline while I cooked for them, cleaned for them, welcomed them into my home. The cruelest part wasn't the planned theft. It was the calculated destruction of my dignity. They intended to lock me away to let me die thinking I was a burden while they enjoyed the fruits of my life's work. I asked the court for the maximum sentence, not from vengeance but from necessity. Sarah has shown that given freedom, she'll use it to harm those who love her most. Society needs protection from such predators, especially when they hunt within families where trust should be sacred. Sarah sobbed throughout my statement. Brad, sitting with his lawyers, looked away. Eleanor didn't attend, already fled to her winter home in Florida to escape the social embarrassment. The judge, a woman near my age, delivered her verdict without mercy. Mrs. Whitman, you targeted the person who gave you life, who sacrificed everything for your well-being. You conspired with others to destroy her autonomy and dignity for financial gain. This court sentences you to 8 years in state prison, followed by 5 years probation, restitution to be determined in civil proceedings. They led Sarah away in shackles. She looked back once, mouth forming, "Mom." I turned and walked out, Ruth and Martin flanking me like an honor guard. On the drive home, spring was blooming across Vermont. My gardens needed tending. My memoir needed writing. My life needed living. I had plans to travel with Ruth to volunteer at the senior center to host book clubs and garden parties for friends who valued me. Sarah had given me an unexpected gift. By trying to steal my future, she'd forced me to fight for it, to value it, to stop accepting crumbs and demand the feast I deserved. As my country house came into view, afternoon sun warming its weathered wood, I smiled. I was 68 years old, financially secure, legally protected, and completely free. My daughter thought she was sending me to Sunshine Manor to die. Instead, I was finally learning to live. 6 months had transformed my country house into exactly what I'd envisioned. October painted the maples in brilliant reds and golds, and from my writing desk, I watched the seasons change while putting finishing touches on my memoir's latest chapter. From betrayal to breakthrough. A Nurse's Guide to Recognizing Elder Abuse was scheduled for publication next spring. My editor called it powerful and necessary, especially the chapter about family predators. I'd change names, of course, but Sarah would recognize herself in every word. The doorbell chimed. Ruth entered with her usual comfort, carrying fresh apple cider from the farmer's market. We'd become more than neighbors, more than co-conspirators in justice. We were chosen family, the kind you build rather than inherit. Guess who's getting an award from the Vermont Coalition Against Elder Abuse? She grinned, waving an official letter. Ruth, I didn't do it for recognition. No, you did it to save your own life. But in the process, You've saved others. Accept the honor, Mackenzie. You've earned it. Through my advocacy work, I'd met dozens of seniors with similar stories. Children who viewed aging parents as ATMs, relatives who documented manufactured decline, families who plotted displacement and theft while smiling over holiday dinners. My story gave them permission to fight back. The phone rang. Martin's paralegal. Mrs. Thompson, good news. The civil judgment came through. Full restitution ordered plus damages. Sarah's future earnings will be garnished until the debt's paid. I thanked her and hung up. The money mattered less than the principle. Actions had consequences even for family, especially for family. That afternoon, preparing for my weekly elder rights workshop at the community center, I found myself thinking about Daniel. My late husband would have been appalled by Sarah's actions, but proud of my response. He'd always said I was stronger than I knew. Just took 43 years to prove it. I told his photo on the mantle. The workshop was packed. Word had spread about the Peachum grandmother who fought back, and seniors drove from 3 counties to hear my story. I spoke plainly about recognizing signs documenting evidence-building support networks. The hardest part, I told them, is accepting that family can be dangerous. We're programmed to trust, forgive, enable. But when trust becomes blindness, forgiveness becomes enabling, and love becomes exploitation, it's time to choose yourself. Afterward, a woman approached hesitantly. My son's been pressuring me to sign power of attorney, says it's just in case, but something feels wrong. I gave her Martin's card. Trust your instincts. Real care doesn't require surrendering control. Driving home through the covered bridges and village greens of Vermont autumn, I felt profound satisfaction. My life had purpose beyond myself now. Every senior protected, every predator exposed, was a victory Sarah's betrayal had made possible. The house welcomed me with the smell of soup simmering in the slow cooker. I'd joined a cooking club, finally experimenting with recipes for pleasure rather than obligation. Tonight, Ruth and I would eat on the porch, watching sunset paint the mountains, discussing our planned winter trip to New Zealand. A car pulled into my driveway, unfamiliar, expensive. I tensed until the driver emerged, a young woman, late 20s, professionally dressed but nervous. Mrs. Thompson, I'm Jennifer Walsh from the Burlington Free Press. I'm writing a feature on elder abuse in Vermont. Could we talk? Seethe. Over tea, she revealed the story's scope. The Whitman scandal had exposed a network of similar schemes across New England. Lawyers, doctors, and family members working together to strip elders of autonomy and assets. Your case broke it open, Jennifer explained. Prosecutors are calling it the largest elder fraud investigation in state history. Your documentation methods are being taught at police academies. I was just protecting myself. By protecting yourself brilliantly, you protected others. That's the story I want to tell. We talked for 2 hours. She asked about Sarah, the one topic I usually avoided. She served 6 months of an 8-year sentence, I said carefully. I heard Brad's divorce was finalized. The Whitman family disowned him completely. He's working as a car salesman somewhere in New Hampshire. Do you ever regret prosecuting your daughter? I regret that prosecution was necessary. I regret raising someone capable of such cruelty, but I don't regret choosing my dignity over her deception. Has she tried to contact you? Letters arrive monthly. I return them unopened. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Sarah showed me she was a predator. I don't invite predators back into my life. After Jennifer left, I sat in my garden until stars emerged. The vegetables I'd planted in spring had yielded abundant harvest. The greenhouse planned for next year would extend my growing season. Small dreams, but mine to pursue without permission or apology. My phone buzzed, a text from a number I didn't recognize. Mrs. Thompson, this is Grace Whitman, Brad's sister. I wanted to apologize for my family's actions and thank you. What you did saved my grandmother from a similar plot. She's safe now because you were brave. Thank you. I didn't respond, but I saved the message. Proof that speaking truth ripples beyond our vision. That night, updating my memoir's final chapter, I wrote, For 68 years, I believed love meant endless sacrifice. I measured my worth by what I gave others, never questioning why they took so much while giving so little. My daughter's betrayal was a brutal education in self-respect. She meant to steal my home, but she freed me instead. Freed me from the prison of endless giving. Freed me from the myth that family bonds excuse exploitation. Freed me to discover that the best revenge isn't punishment, it's indifference to those who prove themselves unworthy of our care. My country house stands as more than property now. It's a symbol of boundaries, defended dignity, reclaimed, and the revolutionary act of choosing yourself when others demand you choose them. To every woman reading this who recognizes her own story, you are not obligated to feed wolves, even when they wear familiar faces. Your life's work is not meant to fund someone else's dreams. Your retirement is not their inheritance. Your love is not their license to loot. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Build your network. And when the moment comes, because it will come, choose yourself with the same fierce devotion you once reserved for those who saw your kindness as weakness. The price of my freedom was my daughter's incarceration. I pay it without guilt, because the alternative was my own imprisonment in a system designed to erase me while spending what I'd earned. Sarah taught me that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to be destroyed by those who claim to love you back. I closed the laptop satisfied. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new stories, new seniors to empower. But tonight, I had peace. Walking through my home truly mine. Now I touched each room with gratitude. The writing desk where creativity bloomed, the kitchen where I cooked for pleasure, the porch where friendship flourished, the gardens where growth was literal and metaphorical. The grandfather clock chimed 10, early by my old standards, perfect by my new ones. I climbed the stairs to my bedroom, pausing at the window overlooking the meadow where deer grazed in moonlight. Somewhere, Sarah sat in a cell paying for choices that destroyed her life. Brad struggled with quotas and commission checks. Eleanor hid in Florida, fortune intact, but reputation shattered. The other conspirators faced their own reckonings. And me, I faced a future bright with possibility. Travel plans with Ruth, book tours for the memoir, advocacy work that mattered, quiet evenings with chosen family, simple pleasures earned through complex struggles. My country house had become more than retirement refuge. It was a fortress of self-respect, sanctuary of second chances, and testament to the truth that it's never too late to stop being someone's victim and start being your own hero. As sleep beckoned, I whispered a prayer of gratitude, not for Sarah's betrayal, but for my response to it. For finding strength I didn't know existed, for friends who became family, for justice that validated my worth. Most of all, for learning that sometimes the best thing you can do for people who take you for granted is to show them what life looks like without you in it. 8 years would pass before Sarah emerged from prison. By then, I'd be 76, likely still writing, still advocating, still living on my own terms in my country house. She'd find no welcome here, no reconciliation waiting, no mother ready to resume old patterns. Instead, she'd find what she'd tried to create through deception, a woman who'd moved on completely, living her best life without a single thought for those who'd tried to destroy it. And that I decided, as dreams claimed me, was the greatest justice of all. If you've experienced something similar where family treated your kindness as weakness, I'd love to hear how you protected yourself. How did you find the strength to choose your own well-being over their demands? Please share your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more about standing strong against those who would exploit our love. Share this with someone who needs to hear that their dignity matters more than keeping peace with people who see them as resources rather than human beings. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Remember, you are not obligated to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, especially when they're the ones holding the matches. Until next time, may you find the courage to defend your boundaries and the wisdom to know that real family respects them.